So if you're logged into Cengage now, version 2, if you go and click on assignments, I know your list looks different than mine, but you should see a chapter 2 practice not graded. You may have to click all assignments to see it. I know mine looks much different than you all's. So if you go to the assignments tab though, and then click on show all assignments, you should find a chapter 2 practice. And go ahead and click on that. And go ahead and start that. I need some water. Allergies are killing me.
I'm sorry, where are you saying to go?
Do it.
I'm sorry, where are you saying to go to?
I'm going to Cengage now. And then click on assignments and chapter 2 practice, not graded. Like just click on any, like you can even click on and click on all assignments. And you should see they're out of order. So scroll down. And yeah, there's a chapter 2 practice. So you can just click practice and start assignment now. Okay, so we have about 8. We'll see what we get through tonight. But I thought we'd go over examples in class together and kind of give you a better idea of what you'll be doing on your homework. Okay, so this first one, in Cengage, they give you notes on how to calculate. For example, they're giving us notes on how to calculate like hourly wages and overtime wages. You may not necessarily need all of that for every homework problem, but they just provide it there. And then they usually give you some little example. It's showing us here how to compute gross pay. And that's what we are going to do. In this first example, it's just actually looking at employees that in this case, they're all going to be non-exempt employees. And they've all worked over 40 hours. So we're just calculating their pay, okay? So it says wages and hours for 5 employees of McNeese Enterprises for the week ended July 7th is given. Employees work a standard 40-hour work week and are paid time and 1/2 for all hours over 40 hours in each work week. So we are going to compute their regular earnings, their overtime rate, overtime earnings, and then their total gross earnings, okay? So again, I'm just going to start with the first one, T. Carmen here. When we calculate regular earnings, we're taking 40 hours that they worked times their regular hourly rate. So for the regular earnings, we're going to take 40 hours times $12.45. Whoops, I'm putting numbers in there instead of in my calculator. So 40 hours at $12.45. Oh my goodness. $4.98. I think I heard someone say that, right? Jody, okay. Yes, $4.98 are the regular earnings. You can, yeah, you don't have to use your mouse, but you have to be clicked inside of there. As you saw, otherwise I'm like typing the answers. But yeah, you can use like the number pad on your keyboard to do the calculator. Because I hate using my mouse on the calculator, yeah. Okay, so overtime rate, again, overtime rate, we're going to take her regular, or he or she's regular hourly wage rate, $12.45, times 1.5, okay? And then we're going to round to 2 decimals. If it's a 5 at the end, I'm going to round up, okay? You will find in this class, like, if you get the wrong answer, it might be a rounding issue. So make sure you really read the instructions about how it wants you to round, because sometimes it'll have you round like intermediate calculations to 3 decimals or to 2. And if you don't round, your numbers will be off.
Yes.
Yes. Amelia says yes. That's the most common error I see in payroll. And so I just try to remind people, pay very good attention to how they're rounding or how they want you to round. So $18.68. And he worked 7 hours of overtime. So I get overtime of $130.76. And then to get total gross earnings, I'm just taking regular earnings plus the overtime. So $498 plus $130.76. So total gross earnings for our first employee should be $628.76. Sorry, I know it's kind of small. I just made it smaller. There we go. Okay. So that's looking at computing regular and overtime earnings to get total gross earnings. So your total gross earnings are all earnings for the period, regular plus overtime. And this is just the standard overtime calculations. So if we go to the next employee that worked 42 hours and they make $11.90 an hour, what are their regular earnings?
$476.
Perfect. And have you calculated overtime rate yet?
$17.85.
Perfect. $17.85 an hour. And then again, this person only worked 2 hours of overtime. So we take $17.85 times 2. So overtime earnings are what?
$35.70.
Perfect. $35.70. And again, to get total gross, we're just taking the regular at $476 plus the $35.70 of overtime. And you should get what, $511.70. So again, it's just kind of practice calculating overtime on this first one. So we would do the same for all the employees. Our next employee worked 48 hours at $10.85 an hour. So what is the third employee's regular earnings? Perfect, $434. And overtime rate?
$16.28.
Perfect, $16.28. And she worked 8 hours of overtime, so overtime earnings are?
$130.24.
Perfect. And then again, we add them together. Total gross?
$564.24.
Perfect. $564.24. Again, if you can calculate one of these, it's the same, just kind of practicing calculating it, over and over. So we have the fourth employee makes $11.25 an hour. So we take $11.25 times 40 hours. So what is regular pay for this person? $450. Perfect. Overtime is 1.5 times the $11.25. Which what is her?
$15.88.
Perfect. $16.88. And this person worked 4 hours of overtime. So what are their overtime earnings? Perfect. $67.52. And again, regular plus overtime. And what is that?
$17.52.
Awesome. Perfect. So this one's pretty easy, but we need to start somewhere. You have to know how to calculate overtime and overtime rates, so it's important. And then last but not least, we have our last employee who worked 45.5 hours at $13.40 an hour. So what are this person's regular earnings? Perfect, $536. And their overtime rate? 2010, good, so $20.10. And overtime earnings on 5.5 hours? $110.55, perfect. And total gross earnings? $646.55, perfect. And then for the whole pay period for all of our employees, we're just going to add up all of those gross earnings. Does anyone have that yet? Total gross earnings?
2868 and 77.
Perfect. $2,868.77. So $2,868.77. Any questions on calculating overtime? It's pretty easy, right? That's not too bad. Okay, well, you're welcome to do the check my work. One thing I love about Cengage is it checks it right in the screen. I like not having it open another page and like load forever. And we'll click on next to go to our next question. And this one, we are dealing with a tipped employee. So again, they give us kind of basic information and an example to look at. So in this case, we have Gabrielle Hunter, a waitress at the Hole in the Wall restaurant, works 42 hours this week and collects over $500 in tips. The restaurant uses the full tip credit against the minimum wage and pays Hunter the minimum required for tipped employees. So it wants us to determine her gross pay from the restaurant. We want to round her overtime rate to 2 decimals and use the rounded amount in subsequent computations. So again, that's when rounding becomes very important. So we need to round our overtime rate. So the first thing it wants us to calculate is just the pay for the 40 hours. So just what they're paying her. So again, since they're taking the tip credit and she's earning cash tips, the pay for the 40 hours is truly the 40 hours times the $2.13, which is $85.20. We did that in the first little lecture part, okay? So her pay for the 40 hours is truly $85.20, okay? If you remember from the PowerPoint, the overtime hour pay is where it gets a little tricky, okay? We actually are going to take the federal minimum wage overtime rate minus the tip credit to get the overtime rate, okay? So again, we're going to take the federal minimum wage, so $7.25 times 1.5, and if memory serves, that was $10.88. So $10.88 rounded. And we're going to subtract out the tip credit at $5.12, okay? And when I do that, I get an overtime rate of $5.76. And just as a reminder, I don't know if I was very clear in the PowerPoint, the $5.12 tip credit, if you, how they calculate that is they took the minimum $7.25 minus the $2.13 we're paying them. So that's where that $5.12 is coming from. $5.12 tip credit plus the $2.13 minimum wage we pay equals $7.25 minimum wage. That's where that's coming from. But we always pay overtime to tipped employees at $5.76. And she worked, what, 2 hours of overtime? So you'll just multiply that by her 2 hours. $11.52. Okay. So her pay for the overtime hours is $11.52. So I wanted to do that one together just because, again, it kind of goes against nature, right? Of what you automatically want to take $2.13 times 1.5. But we do calculate tipped overtime differently. So tipped overtime is going off that $5.76. Any questions on that one? All right. I'm going to go on to next. Oh, and one thing I did want to point out while we're in here, at any time when you're in here working on the homework, if you notice there's little buttons along the top. I think I might have pointed these out before, I don't remember. But you can get to like the ebook and it'll bring up the learning objective. If I click that, it opens it in a new tab. and it's the learning objective tied to this exercise. So if you are struggling or you need to read about it, you can actually get to the ebook from your homework, which is helpful. When you're trying to complete homework, and then your calculator's up there as well, and the option to print. So just some helpful little things when you're doing your homework. Being able to pull up the ebook is nice. Okay. So this next one, we're actually going to be given like clocking in and out times, and we are going to calculate how many hours an employee worked. So every employer is going to have their own designation as far as how time is on the clock is handled. And this one was looking at the decimal system of computing time worked. Some will go to, you know, the 10th, like this one does. Some will go to like 1/4 of time, so you report every 15 minutes, you know. So it just depends on how the employer tracks time. Again, this is an example of using fractions of decimals, basically. And they get deducted hours worked if they're late clocking in. So they're not actually getting paid per minute, you know, we're not tracking per minute, but we are looking at like they're getting deducted for time. If they're 1 to 6 minutes late, then they get 1/10 of their hour deducted, okay? 7 to 12 minutes late, they get 2/10. 13 through 18 minutes late, they get 3/10 of an hour deducted. And then 19 through 24, and etc., gets 4/10 of an hour deducted. Okay, so and that's up to half an hour. Okay, so that one's a little interesting. How we are going to compute hours paid then is based on, you know, when they actually clocked in. Okay, so it tells us the regular hours of work are Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 11:30 and from 12:30 to 4:30. Okay. During 1 week, Henry Vanderhoff earns $12.15 an hour, reports in and checks out as shown below. Employees are not paid for ringing in a few minutes before 7:30 and 12:30, nor are they paid for ringing out a few minutes after 11:30 or 4:30. So this employer deducts time if you clock in late, but they give you no credit for staying late. But you know, this is just their system. So they only deduct time. They don't add on any time. So we need to figure out Monday through Friday what hours Henry is getting credit for. Well, if I look at Monday, he clocked in at 7:28. So he clocked in, you know, a little bit before, so he's good there. And he clocked out at 11:30. So both of those are fine, 11:31. He worked his, 4 hours in the morning. And then same in the PM. He worked 12:29, which he clocked in a little early, and to 4:31 a little late. So he's met his 8 hours, okay? So he actually gets 8 hours of credit on Monday. Again, clocking in a little early or a little late, you know, clocking out a little late are fine. But then we get to Tuesday. He was 5 minutes late. He clocked in at 7:35. Well, then I know if I look at the little chart for minutes late and ringing in, he was 5 minutes late. So we need to deduct 1/10 of an hour off of his credit. Okay. So in the morning there, he should only get credit for 3.9 hours worked, 4 minus that 1/10. Okay. So he's going to get credit for 3.9 hours worked because he was 5 minutes late. In the afternoon, he was actually right on time, 12:30 to 4:30, so he gets those full 4 hours. So since he was 5 minutes late, he gets a deduction of 1/10 of an hour, or minus 0.1. So his total hours on Tuesday are 7.9. Okay, 7.9. We go to Wednesday, and he clocked in at 7:50, so he was 20 minutes late. That is actually the biggest infraction, and we are needing to deduct 4/10 of an hour off of that hour worked because he clocked in 20 minutes late. Okay, the rest of his hours were fine because he worked, you know, past 11:30, and he clocked in before 12:30 and clocked out after 4:30. So on Wednesday, we need to subtract 0.4 hours. So he would actually be at what, 7.6 hours on Wednesday. I'd probably be late every day too if I had to be there by 7:30. We're like, why don't we just not count that first half hour? And Thursday, when we look at his morning time, looks good, right? 7:27 to 11:31, he's good. But in the afternoon, he was 20 minutes late coming back from lunch. So we have to dock him. Again, 20 minutes would be 4/10 or 0.4. So on Thursday, he also earned 7.6 hours. Friday looks good in the morning. In the afternoon, he clocked in 10 minutes late coming back from lunch. So 10 minutes would be a 0.2 of a fraction deduction based on the chart. So he would get 7.8 hours of credit. Okay. So here it just wants us to add up his total hours worked. So what were Henry's total hours worked?
38.
Very good, 38.9 hours. So he missed 1 hour, 1.1 hours due to being late throughout the week. Maybe it was worth it. Who knows, right? And then C, it just wants us to calculate his gross earnings. Well, he makes what, $12.15 an hour. So what are his gross earnings for the week?
472 and 64.
Very good, $472.64. So that's on a decimal system. Again, they're keeping track. They have their own little chart. It could just be that they're rounding to the nearest 0.25. And so if you're 10 minutes late, you don't get credit for that first 15 minutes of work. So everyone has their own time tracking system. Most places I've seen track to the 15-minute increment. Any questions on that? All righty, on to the next one. All right, so this one, we are back to looking at tipped employees, okay? So if I scroll down, it says Bert Garrow is a waiter at LeBron House, where he receives a weekly wage of $75 plus tips for a 40-hour work week. Garrow's weekly tips usually range from $300 to $350. Round your answers to the nearest cent. It says on A, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the minimum amount of wages that Garrow must receive for a 40-hour work week is what? So how much, we've already calculated that up here, right? How much is the minimum? The $85.20, okay? So we know he must be paid at least $2.13 an hour. So for 40 hours, he should be getting at least $85.20 for his week of waiting tables, okay? Is he receiving that? Is he receiving $85.20? No, he's actually, they're trying to pay him $75 for the week. So they're actually in violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. They're paying him below the minimum allowed amount for a tipped employee, okay? So it says, since they are in violation, how much is the additional amount that they should be paying Garrow each week to meet the minimum wage requirement for a tipped employee? We're paying him $75. We should be paying him $85.20, $10.20. It's a lot of words, but it's really just, yeah, we need to be paying him $10.20 more each week to be up to standards on the Fair Labor Standards Act, to be out of violation. Okay. So they could pay him more. They could choose to pay him $100 a week or something like that. But they have to pay at least $85.20 for a 40-hour week. Any questions on that one? That one's pretty short and sweet, to the point, but one of those, again, those little exceptions. There's a lot of little things in payroll we have to be careful with. All right, we will move on to the next one then. Okay, so this one, we're looking at paying a premium overtime instead of the standard overtime rate. The amounts should be the same. It's just a different way of calculating overtime. So here it says Joseph Cavato is paid $12.96 per hour. During the past week, he worked 46 hours, and he is a covered employee who must be paid overtime. So he's non-exempt. It says we want to calculate his gross pay using the overtime premium approach, okay? It says round your overtime rate to 2 decimal places and then use that rounded amount in subsequent computations. What we do with an overtime premium, and they show an example up above that, is we're going to take all of his hours, his 46 hours, times his standard regular pay, okay? So you're going to take 46 hours times the $12.96 that he gets paid. Okay. So what is his regular pay calculated that way?
$96.60.
Perfect, $596.16. So again, this is just a different way to come up with overtime pay. The company can choose to do the overtime rate or the overtime premium approach. So they're taking 46 hours times the normal $12.96 rate. And then to calculate his overtime premium pay, they're just going to take his hourly wage of $12.96 and basically divide it in 2. We're going to multiply it by 0.5. In that case, that would equal $6.48. So that's his overtime premium rate. So the overtime premium rate is $6.48 times his 6 hours of overtime. Okay. So the overtime premium pay is his $12.96 times 0.5, which is $6.48. And then we multiply by the 6 hours of overtime. So what's the overtime premium pay?
$38.88.
Very good, $38.88. Okay, because we've already given him the 1 times his regular pay for those 6 hours, so now we're just giving him the half credit. So again, you would get the same amount of overtime regardless if you calculate the standard overtime 1.5 rate or if you do it this way.
We use this at my work.
Do you think it's easier?
I don't know. It just seems the same to me.
Yeah, it's like just however you have to calculate it, right? Yeah, I think both are pretty easy. It's just remembering, do I do 40 hours or the full hours? Once you get that, you're good, right?
Yeah, it's only a few employees, so we just do it in a spreadsheet real fast.
That's always nice. I love Excel.
Right?
It's just magical. It is. It's a big giant calculator. It's my favorite. And then to get to gross pay, we're just adding up the regular plus the overtime premium. So it should be $635.04. Again, so it doesn't matter, you know, the other way would be 40 hours times $12.96 and 6 hours times $12.96 at 1.5 times the rate. Either way, you get to the same gross pay. It's just a different way of getting there. So if you see the word overtime premium approach, that's what that means. Any questions on that one? All right, well, we'll move on to the next one. sure I'm on. Okay. This one is, we are going to look at a monthly earner and convert it into an hourly rate. Okay. So they give you in the example how to take a monthly earner and turn it into an hourly rate, because we may need to know how to calculate overtime. So in this case, we can just follow these steps, which is what we're going to do. Okay, so we have Cal DiMangino earns $2,875 each month and works 40 hours each week. Okay, but we're seeing that he's a non-exempt employee, so he could still earn overtime. Well, in order to calculate any overtime he may earn, we need to know how much his hourly wage rate is. And they've given it to us in a monthly. So what we do is we actually are going to start by turning it into an annual rate. Okay, so we start with turning it into an annual rate. So I'm going to, step one, take my $2,875 per month times 12, okay? And that will get me an annual salary of $34,500. Okay, an annual salary of $34,500. And from there, I'm going to get a weekly. So I'm going to take $34,500 and divide it by 52. And that will equal a weekly rate of $663.46, rounded to 2 decimals. Okay, so that's where I want to round to 2 decimals. Again, be careful with your rounding. And then my next step, I'm going to divide that by 40 hours to get an hourly rate. And that would be rounded $16.59 per hour. Okay, so we always need to get to an annual amount first, then divide by the weeks, and round it to a weekly, then divide by 40 for 40 hours worked each week, and we get his hourly rate is $16.59. Well, to get his overtime rate, I'm just going to multiply that times 1.5. Okay, so that one's pretty easy. So I just multiply that by 1.5. We should get $24.89. Okay. Again, I do like in the exercises, it gives you an example within it, so you can kind of follow and step through it. Then we try to do them in class too, so you can kind of work out any kinks that you might have. Any questions on that one? It's not too bad. All righty, on to the next one. I think we have about 10 minutes left. So again, whatever we don't finish today, we'll kind of pick back up and talk about next week, and then we'll just have time next week in class to work on Chapter 2 homework. So if you finish it on your own and you don't need to come to class, that's completely fine with me. I won't be presenting anything new. I'll just be finishing up this, and we'll have time to work on Chapter 2 in class. So I will be here, but just in case. Okay, here, this next one is kind of another special circumstance, and we're dealing with a full-time student. So full-time students under the Fair Labor Standards Act, we can actually pay at a lower percentage. And that we get up here, it tells us if they're retail or service or farm or an institute of higher education, we can pay full-time students at an 85% of the $725. So we can actually pay them $6.17. The federal government rounded that from 6.1625. They rounded in favor of the employee, but their rounding isn't very accurate, is it? But they did do that in favor of the employee. So they rounded that to a minimum of $6.17 per hour. Just, right? It would make sense why they lose money all the time, right? It just always makes me giggle when I see stuff like that.
Yeah, that's not right.
But, you know, it is in favor of the worker, so I support that. Jenna Cross is a full-time student at Kirby University. She's employed by the boot shop, which we're going to assume is retail, as a salesperson, and they're paying her $5.25 a week, or an hour, sorry. That would be really bad. 1 week, she worked 33 1/4 hours. So based on what they're giving us, that she's getting paid $5.25 and worked 33 1/4 hours, what would her earnings for the week be?
$174.56.
Perfect, $174.56. However, is this hourly rate in violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act?
Yes.
Yes, it sure is. So I'm going to answer yes on that one. Well, yeah, they're paying her $5.25. They should be paying her a minimum of $6.17 an hour. So it says if the hourly rate is in violation, which it is, what is the amount that they should pay Cross for the week? Well, she should get paid $6.17 an hour, right? So how much would that be? The total wages if they paid her correctly.
$205.15.
Perfect, $205.15. Okay, so it's about $30 in a week, a little bit more.
That's a lot for college students.
It really is. I mean, that adds up quickly. If you always say, well, think about that times 4 or times 52 weeks, that it may seem trivial to the employer, but that makes a big difference in someone's wages. That's over $100 a month. So again, it's good to know what the laws are and how they're being applied. Any questions on that one? Again, those are just those special circumstances, so I think they're interesting to go over. If you click next, the next one is like kind of a bigger one. The reason I thought we'd kind of work through some of it, and again, we're not going to have a lot of time, is you do see one like this on your homework, and it kind of combines some of the things we've been talking about. So it says Kipley Company is a small manufacturing firm located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We have hourly and salaried employees. Each employee is paid for hours actually worked during each week. So that means they're all non-exempt. And time work is recorded in quarter-hour increments. Okay. Standard work week is 40 hours. All employees get paid time and a half for any hours beyond 40. Okay. So wages are paid every Friday. The first payday is January 14th, and this is showing the work week ended January 8th. So as you can see, we have several hourly employees. We have a weekly employee, people that have a monthly, and then even a year or an annual salary. So why that matters is, again, it matters how we calculate overtime. So those hourly workers are pretty simple. When I'm coming down here, we're just going to look at this payroll register, which if you remember from chapter 1, that's one of the required documents to be held by the payroll department. And we're just going to put in their earnings. So that first person here, if I were to scroll up, Fran Carson worked 40 hours this week, and she earned $17.50 an hour. Okay, so hours work were 40 at $17.50 an hour. So hers is pretty easy to calculate because she didn't work any overtime. So I would just truly take the 40 times the $17.50. She'll get what, 700? And sorry, I've got to scroll. There was no overtime, so you shouldn't have to put in zeros at all. You can if you want to. But her total earnings are just the 700. Okay, so for hourly workers, it's pretty straightforward. Let's do one that's not an hourly worker, just since we're running out of time. And that way, if you don't come next week, you can still kind of see what I'm talking about. So let's look at someone salaried, 31 or down. let's look at Gretchen Fay, employee number 31. She worked 41.25 hours. So Gretchen Fay worked 41.25 hours. Oh, see, this is where I get off. We actually need to put in 40. Oh, no, that's right. Just our regular earnings are 40. We need to do 40 hours because that's her regular pay. Sorry, see, I'm getting off on that. So under regular earnings, we always just put in the 40. And then her overtime hours worked. We're going to put that 1.25 overtime under the overtime hours worked. Okay. Well, hers is calculated on a weekly basis, right? We had earnings. She makes $515 per week, working 40 hours. Well, that makes it pretty easy. For her regular earnings, she's getting $515 this week. That's not too bad, right? But we have to figure out what her overtime rate is. Well, thankfully, we already have a weekly rate for her. So we just need to take that $515 and divide it by 40 to get her hourly rate. Okay. So $515 divided by 40, her hourly rate is $12.88 an hour. So her overtime rate is 1.5 of that, or $19.31. Okay. So I would put in her overtime rate, she earns $19.31. Would it be 32? Did I type it in? Oh, because I did my own error, didn't I? I didn't round. Got to pay attention. Thank you. I didn't round when I did my second calculation. I rounded it on the board.
I did that too.
But I kept my number. So yeah, 1932. Good catch. See, I did that on purpose. They'd be catching my rounding errors. Yes. So yeah, I put it up here right. But in my calculator, I kept the 12.87 whatever. So it was incorrect. So make sure you're rounding. So she would actually earn $19.32 an hour of overtime. For an hour and 25 would be $24.15. Okay. And then we just take her $515 plus the $24.15. So her total earnings would be $539.15. Okay. So if you're given, remember, if it's given in a different format than an hourly pay, you're going to need to calculate their hourly pay if they've earned any overtime. So I think there was one other that was like that, B. Hardy, that gets like an annual or a monthly pay. So you'd have to follow the steps to get to an hourly, calculate the overtime rate. Are there any questions on that? Again, I kind of just wanted to, we've done all of that stuff, just putting it in the payroll register is kind of a new format. So that's on your homework, so I thought we'd at least take a look at it. But again, if you guys have any questions on that or want to finish this little example next week in class, we can, or we can look at others if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, have a great week, and I will see you next week.